The Western Champion, October the 21st, 1898. Last Friday at noon, a man reported to the police that he had found the body of a woman floating in the lagoon near the brickyard. On investigation, it was proved to be that of a woman named Foster. It is supposed she committed suicide.
The woman named Foster was in fact Kate Kelly, the well-known sister of Ned Kelly, and this is the story of her life after the siege of Glenrowan and the execution of her brother Ned on November the 11th, 1880. We'll only give a brief overview of the well-documented life story of the Kelly gang and Kate's involvement, and focus on her time in Forbes and the unusual circumstances of her death. Fact or folklore? We'll leave that for you to decide. During the time of the Kelly uprising in Victoria, Kate's name was often mentioned as a strong supporter of her brothers. Illustrations and articles in newspapers of the day often featured her.
Illustrated Adelaide News, 1880. Kate Kelly, a fine specimen of the native-born bush girl, is unmarried and is a most skillful horsewoman. She possesses great pluck, powers of endurance and energies, which, if directed rightly, would be worthy of commendation.
It's well documented that Kate was at the siege at Glenrowan and witnessed the death of her brother Dan, along with the other outlaws Joe Byrne and Steve Hart. Ned was captured and later executed at the Melbourne jail. Much has been written by historians on this era of Kelly history. After Ned's execution, Kate and her brother Jim toured Victoria and New South Wales and gave several presentations to packed crowds. Eventually the police stopped them. At this time, Kate was widely acknowledged and recognised. If there was social media in this era, she would have had many followers. This archival grab of an old-timer singing a song about Kate will give you an idea of her esteem.
Now this daring Kate Kelly, a nobler mien, she sat on her horse like a true-born queen. She rode through the forest, revolvers in hand, well guarded of danger, who dare bid her stand?
Kate then disappeared from public view, and legend has it that she returned to her home territory. But tracing her story at this time has been very difficult. According to information from the Forbes Historical Museum, Hugh McDougall, who was the overseer at Cadow Station, brought Kate to Forbes in the mid-1880s to work as a domestic for the Jones family at nearby Cadow Station. She later moved into Forbes and worked for the Lucha and Prow families. Kate remained anonymous during her time in the Forbes area, going by the name of Ada. It's interesting that none of her death notices mention the name Kelly or her connection with Ned. In 1888, Kate married William Foster, who was known as Bricky, at St John's Anglican Church in Forbes. This union and its problems are well documented in both books and scholarly articles. They had children and lived in Sheriff Street, Forbes. This now demolished house is in that area and would have been similar to their residence. Local folklore has it that this was actually their house. It's now time to introduce you to the late Dave Mathias, a legendary character of Forbes. In later years, Kate's husband Bricky moved into a house immediately behind the Mathias residence, and in his final years was looked after by Mrs. Mathias, who was Dave's mother. The Mathias house was formerly occupied by a Chinese storekeeper, Kwong Li, before Dave's family resided there. Bricky's brother Artie also lived next door to Dave, so he had close contact with both of the Foster brothers. I spent many hours with Dave recording his music and stories for the National Library of Australia. He also had many tales of Kate passed down from the Foster brothers. These recordings are online through Trove, and I'll place a link in our endnotes. And here is where an interesting twist in the story emerges, along with the balance between folklore and fact. Dave passed on to me the tale of a Bohemian doctor and his travelling troupe who were performing a show about Australian bushrangers, including the Kelly gang. The story was related to him by Artie Foster. This performance had a devastating effect on Kate, according to Artie Foster. But let's listen to Dave telling the tale.
Artie's told us that many a time that Kate was going real well.
That's right, yes.
Yeah. And anyhow, there was a Bohemian doctor. They called him a Bohemian doctor. And he was some sort of one of them pill merchants or something and all this, and he was some foreigner. And he put the tent up on just outside of Artie's fence, on the flat there. And there was a lot of people in there, see, and it was a sort of a show he had as well, this sort of a tent. And Artie said that Kate was there that night, and things. He said, would you believe, he said, that we've got one of the Kellys in the tent with us tonight? And anyhow, that sent Kate, because Artie said, just after that, he said it played on her mind. He was telling us, he said it sort of, she was going real well.
This sounded like a good bit of folklore to me. But as so often happens, there was an element of truth in the story, as I discovered when researching the tale some years later. Dave's Bohemian doctor was in fact Ernest I. Cole, who was known as the Bohemian Lecturer. Cole ran an American-style medicine show. He would erect his tent, beguile the crowd with his lectures and sell them the Bohemian family medicines. Extracting teeth was also his forte, and in later years he had a band, which lustily played while the teeth were extracted.
I have extracted over 250,000 teeth without artificial aid. 27 from one delicate lady who left the surgery pleased and happy within 15 minutes.
Long-haired and exotically dressed, the Bohemian Lecturer also featured plays and a diorama about Australian bushrangers in his touring show. These bushrangers, of course, included the Kelly gang. But was he in Forbes about the time of Kate's death? Yes, he was. Here's the trail from newspaper ads of the time.
The Western Champion, Friday, September the 23rd, 1898. The Bohemian Medical Company are nightly drawing large crowds to their open-air lectures and entertainment. Everyone is unanimous in saying that it is one of the best entertainments that they have witnessed for some time in Forbes.
And finally,
The Western Champion, September the 30th, 1898. On Friday last, the Bohemian Medical Company gave another very interesting entertainment. On Saturday night, they intend giving an account of the origin and destruction of the bushrangers of Australia. All of these entertainments have been well patronised by the public.
these newspaper reports place the date of the bushranger performance as October the 1st, 1898. Kate was last seen on October the 5th, 1898. 4 days later. Perhaps Dave Mathias's story was true after all. Kate's body was discovered on October the 14th. An inquest was held and she was buried in the Forbes Cemetery. At that stage, the grave only had a simple wooden cross. In the 1920s, the graves of both Ben Hall and Kate Kelly received new headstones identifying their locations. Kate's headstone was organised and paid for by the man who originally brought her to the Lachlan, Hugh McDougall, the former overseer of Warroo Station. Kate and Bricky's only son, Frederick, was killed in action on April 15, 1917, at the Battle of Lignicourt, France. Fred had kept in touch with his father, who was his next of kin on his enlistment papers. William Foster, who was known as Bricky, died in 1946 and is buried in the Forbes Cemetery. This has only been a very brief overview on the fascinating life of Kate Kelly. We have focused on parts that are relatively unknown and relevant to the Forbes area. The Forbes Family History Group or Museum are only too happy to provide more information. Both the folklore and facts about Kate have continued to be well documented since her death. She was featured in the 1906 feature film The Story of the Kelly Gang and numerous publications. Two of the more recent are Rebecca Wilson's Kate Kelly and Jean Bedford's Sister Kate. Rest well, Kate.